Hi everyone, my name is Madison Dollar, and today I wanted to talk about endometriosis. What is endometriosis? It's a chronic, painful, inflammatory disease that a lot of women suffer with. It's essentially where the uterus grows outside of itself and leaves scar tissue and lesions that can cause very, very bad pelvic pain. As you can see in this picture, on one side you see there's a healthy uterus and ovaries, there's nothing on it, compared to the next picture that shows the scar tissue all around the uterus as well as on the ovaries. What are the causes of endometriosis? It's mostly caused by hormone imbalance. That's the major one that we see in a lot of women. Another one would be retrograde menstruation, and essentially what that is instead of blood coming out of the body when a woman is on her period, it goes back through the fallopian tubes and cells attach to the uterine wall, and it causes lesions in the scar tissues that you saw from the previous picture. Another one is genetics. That's another big one, is that I believe it's 25% of people who have it have a close relative, an aunt, a mother, a grandmother who had it as well. Now, what are some of the symptoms? This picture is a great one at showing most of the major symptoms of endometriosis. There's pain, excessive menstrual cramps, painful urination and bowel movements, diarrhea, constipation, abnormal or heavy menstrual flow, vaginal bleeding, pain during intercourse, fatigue, and a big one would be infertility. A recent study showed that over 50% of women who are infertile have endometriosis. So that's a very large number. 50% of people that are infertile cannot conceive or carry out pregnancy due to the condition. So it's very, very, very sad, and that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people suffer with. Now, how can it be diagnosed? The main one is through laparoscopy, which is an incision surgery in your stomach where they take a camera and they look through and burn off. They cauterize the scar tissue. They take it for biopsy just to double check. But that's the main one. On some occasions, an ultrasound or an MRI can show it. It depends on how progressed the disease is. So it can't always. Now, the big thing is, when do women typically get diagnosed? On average, women do not get diagnosed until 8 years after their onset of symptoms. For myself, it was 14 years. For 14 years, I've been in and out of the hospital with pelvic pain, with bladder issues, with all these symptoms, and they're so bad, you know, the vomiting, the pain, just hunched over, screaming in pain. And it's typically wrote off as a bad period. And that's kind of all, because it is hard to diagnose, because like I said, an ultrasound, MRI, sometimes those imagings don't pick it up depending on the progression of it. So you go to the hospital, you do imaging, it doesn't show anything, it just must be a bad period. So that's why it takes women so long to get diagnosed. Also, there is a huge lack of awareness with the disease, which is why it's something important that I wanted to talk about. There's a very big lack of awareness, and a lot of people aren't familiar with the disease. It also gets mistaken as IBS or interstitial cystitis, which is a painful bladder condition. And I'm not saying that every single person that was diagnosed with that has endometriosis, but that's often, IBS and interstitial cystitis is kind of a label that some providers give when they don't have much of an answer for anything else. So a big one is advocating for yourself. For me, like I said, it took me 14 years, and it took me hearing about it on social media. Someone said something about it, and I was like, well, what is that? Because I was listening to her story but didn't know what endometriosis was, so I looked it up. And I had just been in the hospital 3 times, in 2 weeks. I'd been in the hospital 3 times, and I read all of the information on it. I read reports, you know, studies that were done, and it just fit everything that I had been struggling with for 14 years to a T. So I took that to my doctor the next day, and I asked him, I'm like, well, what about that? And he goes, oh, yeah, it could be that. And, you know, we looked over my history, and he sent me off for imaging to do much more extensive imaging, which was able to pick it up. So I was able, after all these years, to get diagnosed because I came across it on social media, Googled it, and took that to my doctor. Because, like I said, a lot of providers are not educated on it. So I hope that, you know, from me being able to share this, that if this resonates with anyone, you know, that it's something that you could bring up to your provider and hopefully get help if that's what it is. Thank you.